Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review of Thor issue 8. And this was a really good issue. I really enjoyed what they went through with this. There really wasn't a lot of action, but there was conflict between Thor and Iron Man with kind of what was going on here as they kind of talked about everything kind of happening. So the issue starts off, and we get kind of a little tease, a little more of what's kind of going on. How do I say? Not a tease of things to come and everything. Pretty much done with this king's book that every king of Asgard can read, kind of like a president's book. But you have to be king to see it. And then, of course, we see, as someone's talking about it with us, as we see that it's been going on since Buri. We've seen Bor as a child looking at it. We see Odin, we see Thor, and of course, since they're not kings, they see nothing in it. We do, of course, see Odin kind of talking to him about it. We also see that the person that's narrating this is remarking that Thor hasn't really had much time to look through it lately, but something strange has been happening as the book has been shrinking. This is supposed to be an infinite book, pretty much detailing everything going on with Asgard, from the creation through everything of like damnation and all that, with the rebirths and the Ragnaroks and the cycles and all that, and talking about how Thor hasn't seen stuff about the Golden Shadow, the second god of lies, like these other things that they're alluding to of what's to become, and it's like, okay, we kind of have to see. But the thing is, even in this book, what is happening in Oklahoma isn't in there either. We see that Tony's trying to deal with everything as Adam is Thorified, and it's really kind of cool because if you have to look at the art, because Adam had all these different kind of tattoos on his arm, and on both of his arms, but when he transformed into his Thor kind of form, they all turned into like Asgardian kind of ones, and it was really kind of cool to see that level of detail. But everybody's freaking out like, oh god, oh god. Tony's like, chill, you, all of you. And of course they weren't. Adam's like, hey, can you do like another force field? Like, yeah, somebody kind of fried it with like all they're kind of like space magic hammer, and so he emits an EMP thing that pretty much fries this stuff. And evidently, for some reason, since they're kind of off the air, these like old cap buy war bonds things going on, and you're like, you're gonna lose ratings, so I'd suggest kind of like deal with that right now, as they kind of walk off into the distance. And of course Tony's like, listen, this is kind of weird, I know you don't know, I know you called me and everything like that, but I'm kind of gonna need that hammer because this is not going good. But of course, before that can happen, we see a lightning strike, and we see that Thor's come down. He's like, listen, like Tony's kind of discombobulated, like, you could have just sent a raven or something. And of course, Thor's like, hey, thank you, Adam. You've earned a favor from me today, but I'm going to need the hammer. But of course, Tony's like, no, 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 no. They do not have a good kind of history with Bronxton and hammers and all that. And Tony's like, no, no, no. You got to tell me what's going on here. And Thor, of course, is trying to be as understanding as possible. And he's like, because Tony's like, listen, what's going on with Mjolnir? I got to ask all these questions. Can anybody pick it up now? What if Dr. Doom had come? What if you had injured somebody? He's like, listen, that wasn't going to happen because Thor would... Granted, Thor has grown a lot over his many years. And granted, it kind of it's kind of determined by what kind of incarnation you're going for with Thor. But from this Thor, he would have done something if somebody was kind of going in for it. But it was pretty much with this test. And he's like, no, we need to figure this out. And Thor's like, listen, I don't answer to you, Tony. And then Tony flips on his helmet and smacks him with Mjolnir. And he's like, really? Fine. You want it to be that way? And it's like, oh shit. And then you see Thor being like, hey. And we get this great panel as he's like, do not mistake wielding Mjolnir for wielding the power. Now please give it to me. And Thor is being he is being the king that we know Thor can be. He knows how to handle the situation, and he's like, listen, I'm not going to screw you over. I'm not going to smack down with you unless I absolutely have to. Even burning out a chunk of grass in the shape of a hammer. And he's like, fine, yeah, okay. But he's like, listen, you seem pretty tightly wound. We don't have a good history with this place. He's like, Tony, I understand. I get it. And he's like, listen, you kind of have to take some time for yourself. You might need a vacation. You seem really tightly wound. He's like, take it under consideration and everything. And Tony's like, yeah, well, okay. We kind of got everything hammered out. But you did the whole thing with, I wrote on your hammer. You put my number on your hammer. But see, here's the thing. I've got video of me smacking you with your hammer. So top that. And Thor's like, yeah, challenge accepted. Then, of course, it gets back to Adam. He's like, oh, yeah, I don't know about favors or anything, but there's one thing that I'd like to do. And we then see that Thor lets him fly around with Mjolnir, and it's really kind of cool. I'm like, yes, that's why Thor is worthy. Because this dude's not being an a-hole and demanding something unreasonable or anything to become a god or to have his own hammer or to do all this other kind of stuff. He's just like, I've seen you use this, I'd kind of like to fly. And then we even learn a little bit more about, like, see, Adam was very deferential to him because he wasn't around when Thor came around the last time. He's like, wow, it's really an honor to meet you. And then seeing him kind of, like, go and fly, and Thor's like, all right, now you just got to let this spin kind of take you down a little bit so that way you land. Thing is, he lands pretty kind of, not rough, but he lands on his back. He's like, hey, that's a better landing than I had. And Adam's like, well, that was... thank you. When I was in prison, I'd be able to see out into the sky and see these birds, and I prayed that I could fly free like those birds. And I was like, no, that's not stupid. That's what prayers are for. And Adam's like, hey, how can I kind of change this? Like, oh, yeah, strike the ground with Mjolnir with all your might. He's like, boom, oh, okay, cool, here you go. And it's kind of cool. They're like, all right, cool, they're in Bronxton and all that. And Adam's kind of walking away. He's like, listen, I've been kind of thinking, if something's kind of going a little bit haywire, kind of like a machine, sometimes it's better to just turn it off and turn it back on to kind of get it back to some kind of semblance of order. It's like, if that doesn't work, usually I hit it with a hammer. Thor's looking at the hammer, and we see him go to some place, and he's thinking about what Tony said about taking some time, taking some vacation, and then turning it off, turning it back on, and we see that he's looking at a picture of Donald Blake at the Donald Blake Family Clinic, and all right, let's kind of see where this is going. And of course, we've had solicitations that Donald Blake is going to make an appearance and is going to be very influential and an important figure in the next arc. So I'm really excited to see where this is going to be going. And I like this issue, even though there wasn't a lot of overall action and conflict. What we got was Thor is trying to figure out what's going on. Tony is like kind of pissed off in the way he's doing it, but still, in his own Tony way, like, listen, I care about you, man. Take care of yourself, all right? If you need help, talk to us. And even Adam, who has been thrust into this crazy world due to Thor's experiment, is like, hey, giving his own advice and is humble with what's going on around him. And, of course, Tony's going to keep the secret of what's going on with Mjolnir, because if anybody knew that going on, it would be war, as Thor brought up. And nobody really wants that. It would be a war of just insanity going on. Doom with Mjolnir, we've already kind of seen that kind of stuff going on. It's like, ooh, jeez, that'd be, oof. But it also depends upon what kind of Doom we're talking about here, so we'd have to see how that goes. But I really liked how this was more character-focused, and that didn't harm the art in any way, because it really was good at capturing all the different kind of stuff going on, seeing Thor utilize his powers to pretty much be like, Tony, step back off, and seeing the flying and everything like that. So I can't wait to see where the next story arc goes. So those are my opinions on the issue. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also, like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.